Welcome back to Between Two Buffs. I'm Master Sergeant Tamieka Morgan from the 2nd Security Forces Squadron.
And I am Captain Kalyn Haney from the 2nd Operations Support Squadron.
Today we'll be talking about women's history since it begins Women's History Month.
It is. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I just want to start off with a little history because it's Women's History Month. For one, there is so much that you could research, so many hours you could get into just speaking on women's history back through the times. But I really just want to focus on the 3 waves of feminism and what feminism has been pushed through the ringer, dragged through the mud, seen as a negative at times because there is 100 years plus of the feminism movement, and that's starting with women's suffrage. So women's suffrage, the right to vote, last year was the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, and which is incredible for so many reasons, but it is also not that long ago. It's only 100 years. In the scheme of history, that's a short amount of time. And women fought in an era that it was just unheard of. Chaining themselves to the White House, going on hunger strikes, trying to be heard at a equal level, that they do have brains, they do have an opinion, they do have a intelligible thought process that is no different than the male counterpart. And so that was a incredible feat for women, and that just opened the doors to be at the table. Now, you move through the second wave of feminism, which is, I think, where the negative connotation comes from, and that's the equal rights portion of the 60s and the 70s. And in that era, just so much of awakening, if you will, especially the civil rights movement, and women wanting to be at that table for work, being at that equal table, not having to have their husband sign off for a credit card, having their own mortgages, not having it was essentially asking permission to live on your own and be heard. And then you move into that third wave of feminism where we are today, and it's equality. It is encompassing the boxes that we live in, encompassing the disenfranchised, and pulling them together and being like, hey, we are different on so many levels when it comes to different aspects of history, but really we're the same. We want to be at the table with an equal vote, with an equal right to speak, with no questions, trying to get past the firsts, being the first Native American or being the first Native American woman who is Secretary of Interior, being the first female vice president of color. It's, when are these firsts going to end? And it just be that this is a qualified individual in a position to serve or in a position of a company. And I think that is where is exciting. It's that new awakening. It's getting people to come to the table. And the chief says it so well. Instead of putting more chairs at the table, instead of tightening that table, making it a longer, putting our friends at the table to speak and to learn and to understand. And just Women's History Month is about that. It's about coming together and understanding that so we're different, but that doesn't mean that we have to fit into these boxes. And so I know that was a little long-winded, but I really want to tell a story. I just got finished reading The Hello Girls, which is about the Signal Corps in World War I. With women's history in the military, a lot of people start with World War II and the WASPs. But the Signal Corps women were really the first in the U-mates of the Navy. And when it comes to World War I, so much had changed, and obviously fighting war, but with chemical warfare, but also the telephone was instrumental to be moving large masses of people on a battlefield. And the telephone played a pivotal role. And for whatever reason, AT&T and the Bell Company felt that women were better than men at being operators. So when you made a phone call, you picked up your little teller and you got connected to a lady. She'd answer the phone or answer the line, ask what number. She'd take your line and physically connect it into the switchboard. And so when the United States was going into World War I, only 2% of France's infrastructure was actually telephone. So the United States had to build that infrastructure up, and they sent over 223 women in uniform to man the switchboards. And yes, they weren't in the trenches, but they were very close. They were under bombardments. They were working directly for General Pershing, the AEF commander out there, and they took an oath. They wore a uniform. They were considered cadets. They served honorably. And when they came home, the Army told them they were never part of the Army. Wow. And it took them until 1977 to receive their honorable discharges from the Army. And it is because they were so visceral that they didn't want women, but yet they served and wanted to serve and eagerly wanted to serve their country like so many of us today. And it's just an incredible story. I urge every woman who's in the military to read it or to watch there's a great documentary on Amazon, The Hello Girls. But that really brings me into wanting to know your story, because I've talked way too much.
No, you haven't. Okay, so with that, I can share maybe a story that was challenging for me as coming up in the military. So when I joined at 17, leaving my parents' house, I really joined initially because I was a little lazy and I didn't want to go to college. So little did I know when I came in, first thing they hit me with was CECs, and I was going to have to indeed do college courses. So my first base was Incirlik Air Base, Turkey. Being in a male-dominated career field, it was really tough for me as an airman. You know, I felt like I always had to compete with the boys or be in a box or always prove myself and, show them that I was also capable. I can do what he can do too. So I can remember always having to carry, because I was a female and because I was small, they said, well, you need to carry the machine gun. You need to carry the M240 Bravo. That thing is heavy. It was heavy. Yeah. And we would do exercises in the restricted area, where I had to, mount from or get out of my vehicle and run with the 240. So carrying this heavy machine gun and then bounding. So, you're running, I'm up, they see me, I'm down, and then I fall to the ground with this machine gun. So, but I didn't complain. I wouldn't complain because the dudes could do it too. So I would do it. But it was tough. It was heavy, and I wanted to cry so bad, but I didn't. So that's definitely a time in my career where it's been trying because I felt like I had to prove myself, in this career field. So yeah.
I think that all of us, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think a strong majority, it's having those times in your career or just even in life where it's I have to prove, or I feel that I have to make sure that I make this point or act this way or do this job, even if it's physically difficult or mentally difficult or in whatever career field you're in. And it's, just having that thought process in your head of having to think about that, having to always establish whatever status quo you have to ensure that you're treated the same. Yep. So with all these wonderful, amazing stories with women and military, I want to know who. Let's break mill and just get to Tamieka of who inspires you, who has lessened your burden, if you will.
So the person that inspires me the most, my female role model would have to be my grandma. So my grandma Minnie, she's incredibly strong. She passed away about 3 years ago when I was stationed in Italy, but she really was the backbone of my family. She held us together. She was the first one to make a major purchase in our family. So what she did was she purchased her home so that, after she passed, she knew that we would be well taken care of. So
what year was that, do you know?
That she purchased the home?
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably about maybe 25 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. Oh. I know she did. So that home is still in our family today. She made sure to, give the deed to my cousin, and then we have to like agree to sell the house. She made us all promise we wouldn't sell the house before she passed away, but she was very instrumental in who I am today. So my mom is in my life, and she played a major role as well, but I've spent a lot of time, being from the South. Mom had to go to work, so she would drop me off at grandma's house, and that's where I spent a lot of my time at. But she developed and molded me, and to who I am today. So
do you have any like stories at all?
Oh my gosh,
like one that just comes up in your head.
You said that, and I'm trying to find something very like influential and positive, and all that came to my mind was me not getting home before the street lights came on. And she came down the street with a switch, and I was on this red BMX bike, my little bicycle, and she walked all the way down the street and got me with that switch. But
it's so funny, kids nowadays have no idea.
Yeah, they don't know.
What
they
that
don't even
means.
know what street lights are.
Like,
so
they're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
it's like,
just
no,
text me, Mom, when it's
you're not home before those street lights.
Yeah.
You knew you're in trouble.
Yep. So that's what I remember about her mostly. So what about you?
Oh, I've got a lot of amazing women in my life. My mother and my sister are, fire. Like, I grew up with a mama that she was so powerful, like just so her. And the way we were raised was to have an opinion, say what you want, be strong, be independent. My sister just embodies the kind of boss, if you will, that comes in. I always think she always reminds me of Queen Bee, because she anything that comes on her plate, it just is like kill. She kills it. Like, she is just on point all the time. And my grandmother, who passed away last year, she was far beyond her years. That woman was she was a force. At her funeral, she had sorry, this is a funny story. She had the Corinthians, like, love is patient, love is kind. And the priest was like, I don't know why she chose this, but she was none of those. And I was like, oh my gosh, did he really say that? But she was her. I think that the women in my life have just embodied to be you, and not apologize for that. And I think that's just such a strong message to give nowadays, with everything that's out there, social media, with body personification, with, everything is in your face, and they're in their kids' faces and in little girls' faces of, Instagram filters and plastic surgery to get those filters or to look like those filters. I think nowadays it's just ever more, what new box you need to fit in to be fit a certain female type that I just think is, through the generations, it just doesn't change. That female type, you will not make it to the next level unless you look this way, unless you act this way, unless you are this certain personality. And it's frustrating. It is so frustrating. And I know our male counterparts have that in their face as well, but it's a different level.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. It's just such a different level.
I've been there. I've actually been asked, when I've PCS'd into a location, hey, you're here, and, you're a female NCO, so are you a female dog or are you a pushover? Yeah. And I said, I'm Tamieka, I'm Sergeant Morgan.
Nice to meet you.
Right. I don't go into boxes, so thank you.
That's what we deal with constantly. It's hey, we want you to be at the table, but don't be too loud. Mm-mm. We want you to be a leader, but don't be too bossy, because then you are a female dog. Yep. Or don't be a yes woman, but still we want you to fit this mold. And it's like back and forth and mixed messages constantly, where, our male counterparts can be assertive and they can be dominating, right, and they're considered a great leader. But if I do the same, it's like, oh, yeah, she's loud. Yeah. Like, it's different. And I think that a big part of having this conversation is putting that on the table, that we all deal with fitting into whatever box. But there are distinct differences. Yeah. And it's just opening your ears to understand that it is different. Yep. And that even though it's 1920, I mean, 2020, just kidding, I'm thinking about suffrage in my brain, the vote, that it's the same things, just wrapped up differently.
Correct. I'll say something. I'll go out on a limb here and say something. PA, stop me if I'm wrong here. But I can remember seeing a post, because most people are heavily involved into social media. As you know, now we have our first Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Master Sergeant Joanne Bass. And I know that she comments frequently on her social media page. Now, before her was Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force Kalyn Haney. He had a big personality. Met him a couple times. He could say something, and it was funny. It was great. He could comment back on social media, and everybody be like, yeah. And then Chief Bass comments, and is that her place? Does a Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force supposed to comment on social media? What is she doing if she's commenting, on a staff sergeant's post? I've seen that, and I'm like, but it was okay when Chief Wright did it, So why is it not okay if she does it? I just see her as a leader, and she's interacting with her force. That's my thing. She took time out of her day to comment or whatever. Same thing with Chief Wright, so I don't see why that's a problem.
Yeah, it's a different standard.
Yep.
And just along those lines, it's, I hear a lot of people, whether it be military or non-military, and it's like, why are we continuing to have this conversation? I'm over it. Like, I work with a lot of different females. It's fine. Everything's equal. Whatever. Just fill in the blank. Yep. But it's the constant reminder, like just with that story, it's a constant reminder that it is different. That women in leadership roles, or women in general in the military, is different because there are so few. Like, when you think about the statistics, there's about 20% female in the Air Force. And each career field's different. Like Intel, my career field is strong 50-50. I've worked with a lot of different females. Mm-hmm. Being in the operations world, I sit in a room, and most oftentimes I'm the only female, maybe one other female aviator. And in the aviation world, it's even less. And it's a constant, just different standards. It's like you have one bad female leader, and we're all that way. Yep. It's expectations that aren't always on our male counterparts, that you constantly have to think, oh my gosh, how am I acting? How am I being perceived? I'm carrying the next female leader behind me. How am I acting to make sure that her time is not going to be difficult? And it's having that mindset of, like, we just think about so much more at times, not saying all the time, than our male counterparts have to. And I think that that's where the question lies. That's why we have these conversations, is to bring things up like that. And comes to a very good question when we talk about kids. And I'm a sociology major. I love to ask questions to people to see how they'll react, how they'll answer it. And I've made it a thing the last few years to ask my male counterparts, have you at any point in your career made choices to either have kids or not because you thought it would negatively impact your career? And I still have yet to have a male counterpart say, yes. Family planning is one thing. Getting married, having a timeline, that's one thing. But have you cognitively thought that, oh, if I have a kid right now, it's going to negatively impact my chances of school, or my chances of promotion, or my chances to make that opportunity? Absolutely.
I've been there.
Yeah.
So I have 2 children. Mm-hmm. My oldest is 14. I can remember the first time, he's my first pregnancy. So when I first got the news that I was pregnant with him, I can remember looking at his father, and I said, and I was married, stable relationship, healthy marriage. We're in a good spot. We're young, but we're in a good spot. And I was at my first duty location. And I said, what are we going to do? And he said, what do you mean, what are we going to do? And I said, I mean, I have stuff I have to do. I have to, get certified on my duty position. I have firing. I have all these things. And he looked at me confused because I was thinking about my career, and looking back on that, that's pretty hurtful. But in turn, I did that. About 4.5 years later, I did it again with my daughter. I had just returned from a deployment. I've been gone from my duty station for quite some time, about 7.5 months. So newly promoted staff sergeant. So it was time for me to get back, go to 7-level school, my upgrade training, and then, dive into my job, meet my new leadership team. And I come back, and within, I want to say, like 6 months, I was pregnant. And I was like, what? This is not the right time. But when is the right time,
Exactly. I don't have children, but I have many friends that do. And my brother is and his wife are expecting in May. And I think to myself, it's like, whenever is there a good time? Yep. Like, who is ever truly ready for parenthood? Yep. But it's that question. It's those stories that I hear constantly, is that you got the joy taken out of your first and your second pregnancy because the first thing in your mind was, oh, what about my job? Yep. And I know plenty of women on outside military think that too, but it is a constant fear of mine, to be 100% honest. I'm married. I'm in a great relationship, and it would be a blessing to have a child. But, oh my gosh, I'm just like, if I found out I was pregnant, I would be devastated. Yep. Absolutely. And it's so sad to think that. And it's heart-wrenching when, and I can sympathize, I can't empathize, but to be sitting there and not have joy in that moment. Yep. It's just, and that's just one thing of many is just having that thought of, why?
Yep.
Why? Simple.
Shouldn't be that way.
It should not be that hard. It's yes, biologically speaking, we have to carry the baby. Biologically speaking, got to have the baby, got to recover from having baby. And in the most part, sociologically speaking, women are the primary caregivers. Mm-hmm. And especially in this pandemic, women have gotten crushed, and women of color. Oh my gosh. And just to recover from those, from just getting hit and continuing just to get pushed down on because societally we're the caregiver because we have to bear the child. But, a father can just as much take care of that baby as well.
Yep.
But it's that, oh no, you're the mother. You can't go on that deployment because, oh my gosh, you went on a deployment when your kid was a year? You're a bad mother.
Yep.
But
judged by society.
A male would never be asked that of like, oh, your kid's a years old. Oh, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry you had to go on that deployment. Yep. It's just different. And I think that's the question of, that I think about and my brain's constantly moving. And sometimes it's really hard to talk to people about those differences because it's like, well, males have this and males have that and males have this. And I was like, when were you given the right to vote? Do you talk about you getting the right to vote? Granted, it was first white males and then white land-owning males, and then it changed to just white males, and then black men, and then it's, it just like, it's things in our history that it's like, have you ever fought for equal pay? Have you ever had to think about equal pay? Have you ever had to think about, having to make life decisions based off of your anatomical set? Yep. And it's trying just to open up a door of like just take a step back and allow yourself to just feel something different than what you look in the mirror, and that every person has a different story, a different mindset. For sure. And it just blows my mind. So I really want to talk about the amazing changes that are happening with hair. Yes. And I know that there are a lot of people mad about that out there. And let's talk about it. I'm wearing the braid. You've got these beautiful locks.
I do. Rocking them.
Yeah. What do you think?
I love it. So now my hair is natural. My hair has been natural for a couple of years. So that's how I have to achieve the locks. It has to be in a natural state, free of chemicals. But before the locks, I would wear my hair in braids as well, kind of like yours, but I would have to apply extensions. So previous to this location, like I said, I was in Aviano, and I would have to pay people to do my hair, and it was the euros over there. That's the currency. So I would spend about 120 euro to get my hair braided for about 6 hours so that I can put it in a neat professional bun. And usually after I get my hair done, it hurts probably for about 2 or 3 days. So I'm constantly popping Tylenol. So the leaps and bounds of the Air Force has came and overcome with this new hair rig. I'm digging it and I'm loving it because I spent many of days with headaches, with very expensive hairdos, and it's very uncomfortable when I have to put on my helmet. So when I had to put on my full battle rattle, so I'm super excited, especially about the braid that you're rocking over there. So, yeah.
Yes, your hair looks absolutely phenomenal. I love it. Thank you. And I sat last week on the textured hair panel, and it was so much knowledge because I have very different texture hair. I did not have to worry about any of that, just that tight bun. And the bun, I'd go home at night, I'd take the bun out, and I'd just massage my head because I'd just be painful. And I think that, all of the social media trolls that are coming out of like back in my day, I was like, you know what? There's a lot of things that happened back in your day that are not good. Yep. So I don't know what opinion you're thinking of, but I think that it's professional. Great. And that brings with equality is that I think there should be beards. If you can make a regulation for hair and standards, you can make a regulation for beards because so many men deal with razor bumps and pain, and a large percentage of those men are black or of color. And so I think that it's like, let's roll this. Like, I want to see some 1800s like mustaches.
Wait a minute.
Just joking.
Gotta talk about those, the handlebars.
The handlebar
yeah, we can talk about those.
No, but I just think it's positive, the direction that we're trending in. And going forward, I think social media is a terrible thing. It's a great thing for connectivity, but, just like you were saying earlier, I mean, I appreciate Chief Bass, and I appreciate that she is authentic, because I think a lot of our leaders in the Air Force lack authentic leadership. They lack the ability to reach out, and it blows my mind. Like, I cannot imagine being constantly berated for your behavior. Yeah. It just is it's a mind-blowing thing. Yeah. I learn something new every day that I just like living in my little blinders that I just don't see.
Yeah. But, she handles it with grace though.
Oh, it's amazing. Just like with, watching Madam Vice President Kamala Harris carry herself. And I'm just like, that is what, if I ever had a daughter, I want them to carry themselves with strong ambitions and to have that. And one thing that I'm so proud of is wearing this uniform. Absolutely. It just, every day, I'm so humbled and proud and lucky to be able to serve. And that's what I think matters most of all.
Okay. So if you could go back and tell yourself one thing when you were a second lieutenant, as far as giving yourself advice about being a woman in the military, what would it be?
So the reason why I'm in the military is because of my brother. He served in 2000 to 2004. He was my just hero growing up. And he was so honest and truthful. And he really instilled in me, if you're going to do something, then do it. Don't talk about it. And I think what I would tell myself is that mentality. Don't talk about it. Do it. You know, we can talk all day about what we want to do, about what we hope to do. And I would tell, you know, Second Lieutenant Ebner at the time, I would tell her, don't limit what you think you can do, because you can. You know, you don't have to check every box to apply for a job. You know, you don't have to feel like, oh man, I don't reach that at 100%, then, I shouldn't do that. No. If you want to do something, then do it. Yeah. I know myself, I probably could not go into combat. I think if I had to, I would. But I definitely know myself, and I'm like, you know, hoorah for those women out there who are just killing it on the combat roles. But it would just be, you know, don't talk about it. Don't feel like there's walls, that these subjective walls that we build around each other and around ourselves most of all. And lastly, what I would say is that embrace the moment. Embrace the moment and be proud to be a woman in uniform. Like, oftentimes it's, you know, you kind of get that taken away in a way that, you know, you are 100 years ago, you know, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, you know, the first female fighter pilots weren't until the 90s. And it's like, this is new for some people, or it's different. You know, I got thanked in the commissary parking lot from this woman. She was probably in her 60s, and she goes, I just love seeing women in uniform. She's like, I grew up, I lived here on Barksdale, and there weren't few of them. And I was like, thank you so much. She's like, you just look so happy. And I was like, because I'm proud. I am so proud I get to do this. And it's exciting. And the Air Force has been amazing and has just shown me so much more that I can accomplish. I know I'm on my soapbox. I want to hear yours.
That's okay. I'd have two messages for myself, but like you said, the Air Force has afforded me such amazing opportunities. I always say that I grew up in the Air Force. The Air Force is absolutely my first job. I joined when I was 17, and my mom had to sign me over to the government. So I turned 18 in basic
bet she
training.
was like, my baby.
Yeah, she was. She didn't want me to go, but I went. So I would tell myself two things. Everybody has their own path, and you know, everybody has different ways to get to success. Yours is yours. So travel your path. Stay in your lane. That's what I like to tell myself. Stay in your lane. You know, when I first came in, I like to look at, you know, peek and see what other people are doing. Oh, he's doing it that way, I'm going to do it this way too. No, you have your own path. So take your own path. And, you know, the sky's the limit. Break barriers. Mm-hmm. You know, we're seeing it right now, 2021. You know, Chief Bass, keep bringing her up. Breaking barriers. Since 1947. So, yeah, that's what I would tell myself. I was really shy and scared, and, you know, when I first came in, afraid to speak up. But now I'm here. So, yeah.
You're killing it.
Yeah.
I know I keep saying that. I'm like, let's just kill it. Just get out there. But I think closing this out, you know, a message to those young lieutenants or young airmen, even, you know, the chiefs and the seniors and out there, it is the more authentic that you can be, the more you can be, the more you, like, that's what this Air Force needs. And I urge everyone to go out there and kill it.
Yep.